All right. So yes, so thank you to everyone for tuning into part 2 of our emergency preparedness and backup power program at Tin Mountain Conservation Center. Excitingly, we actually have one of our presenters actually at Tin Mountain Conservation Center, which is not often the case with since we've gone to this virtual format. Before I hand things over to Russ to kick off, I just wanted to start by first thanking our Nature Program Series sponsors, Hancock Lumber and Ragged Mountain Equipment, for their continued support. And encourage you, if you have been enjoying our programming, to support Tin Mountain yourself. The best way to do that is through our membership program, which you can find out more about on our website, tinmountain.org, or you are also welcome to donate just specifically to our Nature Program Series, again on our website and under the Support Us tab. So that really does help us keep our programs going. I also want to put a plug in for, we have a program this Saturday if you're looking for something to do. It's been a couple years since we've done this, but our executive director, Lori Kinsey, will be leading a winter weeds and seeds field program for a small group. And that will start at 10 a.m. at the Nature Learning Center on the Rockwell Sanctuary around the Nature Learning Center. If that's something that you're interested in, you can give Tin Mountain a call, or you should be able to email any of us. We do ask that you make a reservation in advance so that we can be sensitive to limiting group size and keeping everyone safe. With that, I'm very excited. There are, and Russ will probably mention this, if you didn't join us last week, that's on our YouTube channel, but also on our website right now. If you go to the bottom where it says news and it says 2-part emergency power program right on our homepage, there are several links. And I know we talked about the links to those checklists to determine what your what your electrical load might be to help define to help in this process. There's also an emergency checklist. And then earlier today, I added another form, which a flow chart, which I think that Russ will mention. But we are excited, in addition to, to Russ, we're excited to have some individuals from the utility company and from the energy sector. We'll get into and introduce them as they come on screen. But at this point, I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to Russ. Again, probably the best way for questions is to type them right into the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. If it's an immediate clarifying question, you can probably also unmute yourself and ask that directly, or you can type it in, and I'm happy to interrupt Russ. Otherwise, I will be watching that the chat feature, and I am happy to ask those questions to Russ and other individuals at the end of the program. So with that, Russ, I'm going to turn things over to you.
All right. Don't be bashful about your questions. Remember, your taxes paid for me to become an aircraft electrician, so I'm a little bit out of my element here, although the electricity is still electricity, and that has helped me understand some of the basics of what we're going on here. Fortunately, I never got to work on many airplanes. Unfortunately for me, maybe fortunate for the New Hampshire Air National Guard. The thing that brought us all together here tonight was the fact that Tin Mountain has a very elaborate photovoltaic system, but unfortunately, as with most places with photovoltaic systems producing their own power from the sun, when the grid goes down, everything goes down. You don't have any electricity. Those things are sitting up on the roof, cranking away, but you can't use them yet. we're going to be getting into that towards the end of this. That's an exciting new development, something I'm thinking about for myself, though I very seldom lose power because I live so close to the grid. But there are other things that are coming on board with the new battery storage systems that may make it practical for me and many of us to do one of the new battery storage systems that we'll be talking about. If you did your homework from last week, you're not going to be quizzed here. You might have gone around and found those things that you absolutely can't live without. A furnace is probably one of them. Boiler, pellet stove, whatever. A freezer. You certainly want to be able to keep what's in the freezer. If you've got a deer or a cow or even just a lot of strawberries in the freezer, you don't want those things to all thaw out. Microwave is a very, very efficient tool in a power outage for cooking, and I've just listed those three things as some things that might be necessary. Somebody consider as an absolute must to have during a power outage. Remember that some power outages can be an hour, some can be a week or more, and your needs will be different from one to the other. So we've got a total checklist of those four items of 4,225 watts. Remember, a watt is 42 would be 42 42 light bulbs, I think it is, times 120% to give you a safety factor. So that comes out to like 5,070 watts. That's what you should be looking for your backup power. Sources of backup power. Now, I talked with somebody last week who's watching tonight who'd never heard of one of these. I introduced them to it. Yes, you can get them at Staples. I checked. You can get them through Amazon. I bet you can get them at Walmart. This is a small, uninterruptible power supply that will power your computer for a while and maybe your phone, and probably supply you some power for a laptop, whatever. This is a small residential size. These things nowadays can be as big as a warehouse if you're providing backup for somebody like Google or Facebook. It's basically the same concept. It's a battery that switches over immediately when the grid goes down. And it's coincidental that we're beginning with this concept and ending with this concept because they're both essentially battery backups. There's another device that's quite inexpensive that can plug into your car cigarette lighter. Well, I guess we call them PowerPoints now that everybody's given up tobacco. That would plug in, and that would give you a source of power for a lot of little things, or a few little things. Keep in mind, this is only like 400 watts. So that's
Hey, Russ, I'm sorry to interrupt. Are you sharing the screen? Because we're not seeing anything.
I thought I had done screen share.
No,
sorry.
Nothing's coming up. Sorry.
All right, let me go back up here and see. Optimize screen share for video clip. No. Share.
There we go. Now you're on. Right. You can make it in.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Let me get back to, this is for you computer folks. This was done in Microsoft PowerPoint and switched over to the new Libra system, which is free software. Not everything works exactly the same, but it's pretty close. So that's what the UPS looks like. That's what a small inverter looks like. This is what a larger inverter, what an inverter means. If you, on an airplane, you probably heard an inverter, at least in the old days, it would be that thing that go whine like a top. You could hear it going, yee. That was probably an inverter on the airplane that was making the 120 volts that they would use there, or even 440 volts, switching it from battery power to AC power. That's what this thing does. This, you'll notice, is hooking to the battery on my truck. Whoops. I can't click that because it changes it. That hooks, I've got a quick disconnect here, and this will provide 1,000 watts of power, so I could run, perhaps, for instance, the furnace in a mobile home where my daughter lives if the power does go down. I want to talk about that later because I did try it once and I almost destroyed it. Generators and batteries for backup power. Okay, this is the meat. Most important lesson you have tonight is that any source of electricity that you connect to your home requires you to disconnect your home from your incoming power supply, your electric utility. Connecting a portable generator directly to your electrical service panel could fry appliances, endanger utility workers who might be working on power lines, or damage your generator or other backup power source. I don't like to be just reading slides, but these are very critical that you understand this concept because mistakes have been made and people have been hurt. Portable generators, I have this little portable Honda generator that's suitable for a few things, not a whole lot. Campers like them. You'll hear them humming in a campground at the time that they're permitted. Very dependable, like a lot of Honda products. Not a lot of power, a couple of thousand watts. And some 12 volts if you wanted to charge your car battery, if you flatten your car battery. Here's an even smaller generator put out by Generac, which we'll see more Generac later. Very, very big player in the generator market. Only 1,700 watts. But what's curious about this is the Honda typically sells for about $1,000 or a little more. This little thing is only about $700. So for some very small loads, this would be satisfactory. Now here's a bit bigger 8,000 watt generator, and just to compare prices, it's gone up not tremendously. It's actually fairly economical compared to it. Well, no, there's a 5,050 watt generator. I think this may have come from been on the Harbor Freight catalog or one of those. $729. This is a generator that would be adequate to service those few loads that I listed at the beginning. Now we're getting into something more serious here, although still only 5,000 watts. But look what happens to the price when you go diesel. Diesel is a much steadier source of power. It used to be a cheaper fuel. Well, it is actually now if you use off-road diesel, because you don't have to pay the fuel tax when you buy diesel fuel to run a generator. That's not going to drive down the road. But diesel engines, as we know, diesel powers most of our equipment. Very dependable, reasonably economical, but a lot bigger investment at the start. The simplest and easiest solution with any one of these generators, and unfortunately my son is stuck with this scenario because the house he bought belonged to somebody who worked for General Electric, and they would apparently experimenting, so his wiring is such that he can't do what we're going to be talking about soon. He has to plug the appliances into his generator, run extension cords, but that still remains the easiest thing to do. You unplug your refrigerator, you unplug your freezer, you plug them into extension cords, and you plug the extension cords into your generator. And if your generator is big enough, you can also plug your microwave into it. If it's not big enough, you unplug the freezer and you plug the microwave in. It's simple as that. It depends on how active you want to be. The advantages of this scenario is it's the lowest cost. It's a generator can be used for other purposes. You can use it for work. It can be shared between homes. If you've got you want to run our freezer and then your mother's freezer for a few hours, you could switch these back and forth, because that freezer is not going to, especially if it's not opened, that's not going to heat up in a hurry. You don't have to set the temperature down a little lower maybe when you're running it, so you get it a little colder, and then switch back and forth. That's one of the advantages of a portable generator. Small generators, limited output for only a few critical loads. A larger generator may be able to handle larger loads, but here's the catch. Many, if not most of your appliances are hardwired rather than being plugged in. Would require rewiring to be served by the generator. Your well pump, your clothes dryer, we'll forget that because you probably can get by without that. Cook stove maybe, air conditioner, but a well pump is one of those things that you would want, and your furnace may be hardwired also, and you just can't unplug that and plug into the generator. So you need a different scenario for that. You also need to have someone present to hook them up. And here's something I hadn't thought about but came up with as I was reading around. will not tell you when the grid power has come back on unless you have other electrical appliances that start up when power comes on, or you notice that your neighbors have power. Typically what would happen if you plugged in only a few things, you probably turned every light switch on the house just thoughtlessly, saying, oops, yeah, we don't have power, forgot. And those will all come on if you haven't switched those over. So that would remind you to shut the generator off and plug things back in. Generators are noisy. This is true of any generator, whether it be plugged in or fully automatic. And like any mechanical system, it can be subject to failure. And remember that you're not going to use the extension cord that you use to plug in your Christmas lights for these things. You want a heavy duty extension cord, a number 12 or a number 14. That means the wire size, they're much heavier than your little ones that you use around the house. The 3-prong extension like the tradesmen use for their power tools. This might have been Harbor Freight also. Alternative to strictly the plug-in extension cord, a manual transfer switch. This is installed near your fuse, near your breaker box. This is a typical cost of one of these. It lets you easily and safely power what you need most: your refrigerator, furnace, boiler, sump pump, well pump, whatever. Now, this is borrowed from this old house video. Normally, power would be coming into the house from the grid to your breaker panel, and it would go out from your breaker panel up to whatever your load is, any of your electrical appliances. What happens when you install a manual transfer switch, and I figured this is how it had to be, but I'd never seen it done until I started the research, very clear and simple. Things get rewired a bit. So the power now, instead of going to a breaker in this panel, bypasses that panel and comes over here to a manual transfer switch. And under normal conditions, when you have grid power, that switch is just left in one position and the power goes back out to the appliance. Now, when you throw the switch, you disconnect from the grid power so that you don't hurt the lineman, and you switch to a backup power, and your backup power comes in through this manual transfer switch and out to wherever your appliances are. It's a pretty elegant and fairly simple way to do this. Just at the throw of a switch. Advantages: there's greater safety because it disconnects house from utility power. You can't forget. It simplifies hooking up your generator at what might be a difficult time, the middle of the night or the middle of a rainstorm or whatever. It requires little training for hookup, and it can serve hardwired appliances such as furnaces and water heaters. The disadvantages: it requires a bit of rewiring, including the cost of the hardware. And this might look a little, if you haven't looked in your breaker panel, this is somewhat like it would look like, but somebody's been doing some, who was that? Somebody's been doing some labeling to change some of the wiring over to the manual transfer switch, which would end up right here. This is what goes on the outside of your house or the outside of your basement someplace, what your generator plugs into. You'll notice that this is actually a male plug instead of being a female outlet, because what you're going to be doing is plugging a cord from your generator into this. And that end of the cord that you're plugging into this, if the generator is running, that's going to be hot. That's going to have electricity on it. You don't want to have bare connectors sticking out there that could zap you. So that would be a regular female type plug, and that would slip into this and transfer the power from your generator to this outdoor power inlet box. And your generator can be outside the house. Well, has to be outside the house. And it can be in one of these reasonably soundproof boxes with the proper ventilation for combustion. Now, this gentleman and his wife are watching here this evening. They're the first ones to sign up. And I saw this a couple of days ago at their house. Very elegant. And I just checked with him. This was installed by their electrician. And this is a manual transfer switch in their regular breaker panel. They were able to, I suspect this is what's down here, probably their critical loads, and they have a transfer switch here with a lock on it, so that somebody just doesn't switch it automatically. And this would switch the power from the grid coming in to their generator coming in. And when this is thrown, it means that each of the things that's connected to these breakers are now being powered by the generator. So this is their main breaker coming in like you would have in any panel, but this is a separate manual transfer switch within their same breaker panel. Didn't require buying another whole setup, and it kept all the wiring very neat in here. Now this is what they have outside. This is their plug that the generator plugs into. They've got a 7,000 watt generator, which you probably recognize by this point is not very big. However, they are well tuned into what they're doing. They don't use their electric stove. They don't use their dryer. I'm not sure that they use their regular furnace or not, but they have a pellet stove that doesn't draw very much. So they are proactive, and they've saved themselves quite a bit of money with this backup power installation. And I have heard it running when we lost power. Okay, typically it'll take an electrician around 3-4 hours to have a transfer switch installed. Current pricing is $200 to $600 in labor. It's quite a range, but everybody's situation is a little different. And that was in August of this year. Transfer switch, about $500 to $900 to install, including the labor. You'll have one connection to make, plugging one end of the cable into the portable generator and the other end into the dedicated box connected to the transfer switch. That's this box back here. Quite simple, quite elegant. Okay, the alternative, and I know nothing about this, I just came across it. I'm just going to throw it out. It's something I would check with my electrician on. It may not be totally legal in some places, but it's a lower cost interlock kit that can eliminate the hazard of a direct connection, but it's something you need to check with your electrician about. This is not an endorsement by any means. Here's an important factor. From 2005 to 17, more than 900 people died of carbon monoxide poisoning. I've heard of a recent factor that more people are dying from carbon monoxide poisoning there than are dying from the whatever the hurricane or earthquake or whatever that episode was. So people don't understand necessarily about how to operate a generator properly. It should never be running in a closed space. Well, unless it's in a dedicated type thing that I showed you a moment ago that's designed for the generator. It should always be run at least 20 feet from your home, and it should always direct exhaust away from the home. Now, whether it's plugged in with an extension cord or hooked to a manual transfer switch, they usually are started manually, though you can get electric start. They can be hard to start at times. I came upon somebody recently was trying to start her generator, and she hadn't turned the fuel on or something as simple as that. It's going to require maintenance, including oil change, and it should be exercised from time to time. And you should have a visible checklist showing how to start that generator, so you don't have a senior moment when it comes to it, or if you've got a neighbor or another family member that's not entirely familiar with it, but you're away and they have to do it. A checklist that shows how to turn on the gas, choke it. I've had a hard time getting my daughter to understand the concept of a choke. Us old timers remember them on the dashboard of the car. Going to set the throttle unless it's automatic. Where's the spare gas located, and where to plug it into the power inlet box. Now, modern gasoline engines, modern gasoline contains ethanol that can damage small engines like generators. It doesn't seem to bother automobiles because it's used up pretty rapidly. Note that some generators can be retrofit to run on propane that does not deteriorate like gasoline, but I know somebody hadn't heard about this till last week. You can get this at any Napa store, certainly Walmart, any of those places. It's a gasoline treatment. either the Marine Stable. I've used this Marine Stable, and also the Startron, and it's not very expensive, and it treats a lot of gasoline. And I haven't had any trouble with small engines, and I've got a lot of them since I started using this. Okay, the lesson behind all of this is, remember that never hook up more loads to a generator than it is rated for, preferably 20% less, or you risk damage to the generator. And if you are a YouTuber, be careful choosing what you watch, because I watched one video and then I noticed that the replies were good video on how never to install your generator. The one that is very good that I would recommend, if you're a do-it-yourselfer and you want to install a manual transfer switch, or maybe work with the electrician and do some of the grunt work and have the electrician make up the connections. Ask This Old House, a very good video. Now we get into the home backup generators, the permanent installations. Now here's a 7.5 kilowatt generator, which is about the same size as the one we looked at that was on that home that I showed a moment ago. This is not very big, and it's not too expensive. It's a couple of $1,000. We can go to the other extreme, and here's a $30,000 150 kilowatt home backup generator. I'm not sure who would need one of these, but maybe for medical things or something like that, it might be necessary. But they are available, and this is considered a home backup generator, not a business. This is somewhere a little bit larger than our small one, and this is a name everybody will recognize who had an engine, a lawnmower 40, 50 years ago. They're almost always Briggs & Stratton engines, and this is a Briggs & Stratton generator. This again would be a built-in generator. Now, the advantages of a built-in generator: it's totally automatic. No running temporary wires or manual switching. Starts almost instantly when power is lost and disconnects from the utility power automatically. It can serve any and all electrical appliances, furnaces, boilers, water heaters, without any special hookup, or it can be sized just for critical loads, as could a portable generator. You don't necessarily have to power the entire house. You probably, again, don't need to run your clothes dryer, and maybe you don't need to run your electric oven at those times when you're on backup power. LP generators, propane, run very clean, and the fuel is very stable, so they do not require the same exercise schedule as gasoline and diesel. The generator mechanics are simpler, and they have a very low exhaust odor. I think you've probably heard that trucks that run on propane power run a lot cleaner. There's a lot greater distance between oil changes and that sort of thing. And this is what an automatic transfer switch looks like. It's probably not a homeowner type thing unless you're a very good mechanical homeowner. The disadvantages: the high cost of the equipment installation. They need to be exercised. Even though propane burns clean, one of the manufacturers, Onan, does check the hours on a generator set, and if too few hours could void the warranty. They want an average of 24 hours a year to ensure warranty service. So they have to be advertised. I think my friend Wayne told me about 10 to 20 minutes once a week, like you would any generator. So they're going to be noisy when they're running during exercising, and obviously when the power is out, but be less concerned about the noise then. They're going to require periodic oil changes, and they're a mechanical system subject to failure. Most home generators are propane powered, which is ideal if the home is using propane for other purposes: heat, cooking, clothes drying, etc. But it's expensive if the propane is installed only for the generator. The only consumption is during exercising or during a power failure. This means you're going to either rent the tanks or buy the tanks, and you're going to pay a lot more for the propane. It's still a very effective way of running the generators, but it's going to cost more. An all-electric house using no propane anyplace, they're going to be paying for a gas tank. They're probably going to be paying to have it buried, so it's not unsightly. A lot of expenses that can be incurred. Now, online guide for choosing a standby generator. Generac, their website is very effective. And All Time Power, I found them. I think they're a supplier, but they have a pretty good how to choose this your standby automatic generator. These addresses are included in the downloadable guide that I'll show you at the end of this. Now, batteries have been used for a long time to store solar produced electricity when the sun doesn't shine. Usually a lot of them. These are not your average car battery. They might look like car batteries, but they don't have as many of these things on the top. These maybe only, well, they may be only 2 volts actually, instead of 12 volts like you have in a car, but there's a lot of them to make up the difference in voltage. And I think these are the ones that the publisher of the Green Energy Times was selling because she was switching to the much more modern lithium ion batteries. These are basically a lead acid battery like you'd have in your car. And now this is something new. I've heard about it for a while. I haven't seen one firsthand, but if you have an electric vehicle or a hybrid vehicle, you've got a pretty good battery bank in that vehicle that to run that vehicle, and that vehicle will power your house quite a bit with an inverter like this. This again out of the Green Energy Times. This gentleman produces this. I forget what he used to call it, but he's now calling it convergent power. It's only 3 kilowatts. It's not going to power your well, but it might keep a few lights on and power your computer. I don't know anything about this. Oh, that's right. Convergent was the old name. Plugoutpower.com is the new name. So this is apparently the new hardware that would hook your electric vehicle or hybrid vehicle to certain loads in your home. A smart way to do it. You've already got the batteries there. It's going to involve some labor. It's just like I used to tell people with window quilts. Window quilts are for active people because you have to pull them up and let them down to make them work. So active people live in passive solar homes, and passive people live in active solar homes where you've got pumps and bells and whistles to make everything work. If you're willing to take part in your backup power, this could be one of those scenarios. Here's the new kid on the block. And I just got an email today, coincidentally, from somebody who's a member of this organization. And Nora has given him a tour here. He went ahead and put in mini splits. And after he got his electric bill in the middle of the winter, he said, oops, and he went solar. And then he did the next jump, and he installed a Tesla Powerwall. And we'll be talking more about this, or Kim will be talking more about batteries here in a minute. This is the new type of storage. Again, this in essence is the same as that little tiny UPS I showed you, but on a much grander scale. This can power your whole house, or maybe just some of your critical loads. It works with the grid, grid-tied power or solar power only. So it can be powered by the grid, or it can be powered by solar, or it can be powered by both. But the advantage of this is when the grid goes down, your solar array still can operate, so you can use whatever power you can draw out of this, and the battery interface with this will allow you to use that. Now, I assume Kim is here, and I guess you're ready to crank up here.
Yes, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, I can.
All right.
Now I've got to get rid of my screen.
I was going to say, Russ, if you stop screen sharing, then Kim should be able to pop hers up.
All right, if I can figure out.
Those of you that don't know Kim Bowker, while we do this switch, Kim is a Tin Mountain Energy Team member. She's also a Tin Mountain board member and works for the Alt E store.
All
right, I got to figure out how to stop me. Oh,
so
stop.
At the bottom, you should just be
right on top. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've never done a PowerPoint presentation on Zoom. So if I'm doing anything wrong, you guys let me know. But yeah, like Nora said, I'm a technical sales rep at the Alt-E store. We're a web-based seller of solar equipment and lots of batteries nowadays. We're based in Massachusetts. We have warehouses in California and Puerto Rico as well. And yeah, we're going to talk about battery backup systems. You know, we weren't sure how many people on the call here would have solar installed. So I don't have a lot of prepared information about adding battery backup to grid tied solar systems, but I have some stuff sort of in the wings. So if people who do want to talk about it want to stick around, we could talk about it a little bit more at the end. It gets a little bit technical. So anyway, all right. So let's talk about it. What is a battery backup system? What is a backup?
All right, one second, Kim, can you put it, only because we're seeing exactly what you're seeing. So I didn't know if you wanted to put it in presentation mode, just so we don't see, so it fills the screen.
Oh, let's see.
So people don't have to look at me.
Well, that's not up to me, right? They can choose.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Russ, that's a whole nother thing.
Thanks.
Let's see, view presentation mode. What's it under, you guys? Format, maybe?
Or just
Slideshow?
yeah, just putting it into
Play from start.
Oh, slideshow. Oh, whoops.
I'm pressing the wrong button to unmute myself. Put it under slideshow. And you could start from where you were, but you can spin through.
Yep.
Is that better?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Excellent.
Thank you.
So here we go. So yeah, all right. So what is a battery backup system? In the context of this conversation tonight, it consists of batteries and an inverter. And Russ, talked a little bit about both of these items. I'll talk about batteries a little bit more, and I'll talk about inverters a little bit more. Inverters are a wide range, as you saw from his presentation. So, and basically what happens with these battery backup systems is when the grid's up, the inverter charges your batteries from grid power. And then when the grid is down, the inverter inverts that stored battery power to run your AC loads, okay? Inverters nowadays are super smart. They can do a lot more than that. They can turn your generator on and off automatically. They can sell power back to the grid automatically if you live in a place where you have time of use rates or something like that. So they can really do a lot to manage your loads and to help make the most of the investment. Right? Like one thing about a backup power system is it's just sitting there waiting for the grid to go out. Well, let's use it. Ooh, this doesn't look too good in presentation mode, does it? The main thing I wanted to show here, oops, sorry if that looks terrible, but the main thing I wanted to show here is, so if you can't see the whole thing, it's basically we're comparing batteries to generator. Like, why would you consider using batteries and an inverter instead of the generator? And there's a couple reasons. Obviously, there's the getting away from fossil fuels, both their environmental costs and their financial costs. The fourth category there where it says yes and no, that goes back to what Russ was talking about. Generators are not automatic. You got to go turn them on yourself unless you have an inverter that turns them on. Whereas these battery systems nowadays, you can control them with an app. You could be halfway around the world and say, turn my inverter off. I saw the grid went down. The other thing I want to show you here is the pricing. Now don't get too attached to those specific prices. The one on the left, the higher number is the batteries. The one on the right is the lower number, the generators. But scroll down to the next two columns and see that the batteries and the inverter are eligible for tax credits, whereas the generator isn't. And the batteries are going to last for 10 years, whereas your generator might last 5 years. Okay, I stole this chart from someone. These are not like necessarily set in stone numbers. But if you do that math, you can see your generator over 10 years is going to cost you 18 grand. Okay, 9,000 for your generator times 2. And your batteries that cost you $28,000, you're going to get a rebate. So they're going to be more like 21,000. Okay, so now over 10 years, not much of a cost difference. And we haven't even looked at gas, any of that kind of stuff. So don't necessarily think of it as, oh, I got to pay a lot if I love the earth, or I'm going to really save money if I get a generator. It's not necessarily that cut and dry. how you size a battery backup system. The inverter is just like the exercise that we did for from last week, your homework from last week, that you used Russ's spreadsheet to add up everything you would use. And that's how you're going to size your inverter. Your battery bank is you're going to look at that wattage, and you're going to think about over time, how much power are you going to use over time? Okay. And one thing to keep in mind, generators, like Russ said, you can't overload them. In fact, you should underload them. Whereas inverters a lot of times have surge built in, and quite a bit of surge in some cases. So you might even have more flexibility in sizing your inverter. The last point I want to make here is that they're not one or the other. You can use a battery backup system and a generator, and there's some good advantages to that. Number one, you run your generator less, right? And number two, you could keep your generator off when you're running small loads or overnight. And of course, then you can have a smaller battery bank. And so it always comes down to the question of what you're trying to run and for how long. All right. So this is the last heady thing here, and then we'll look at some examples. So if you're talking about batteries in a battery backup system, you might use a lead acid type, either a flooded or an AGM, or you might use a lithium ion. There are two types that are common with lithium ion, the nickel metal carbon, I can't remember what the C is, or the LFP. And the LFP, lithium iron phosphate, is a lot more common, and I know more about it. So that's probably what I'll talk more about. But in this case, and also flooded batteries, you hardly ever see flooded batteries really in battery backup power systems anymore. It's really more the AGM, which is that middle column, or the lithium ion. And there's a couple reasons for that. One thing is, if you scroll down about halfway, you'll see a self-discharge rate. So that means those flooded batteries are just sitting there losing power. Every day they sit there. Versus the AGM or the lithium ion, a lot lower self-discharge. And of course, with flooded, you've got to vent them, you've got to water them. And then if you'll go up the screen a little bit, you'll see the cycle life. And that's where the money comes in. A flooded battery, you might get a couple hundred cycles out of it, maybe 1,000 if it's a giant one. AGMs, I meant to change that slide or that number. There's AGMs nowadays that'll go up to about 3,000 or 3,500 cycles. And then of course you've got your lithium ion batteries that'll go, again, this number says 6,000. We sell some that go up to 10,000. And cycles means how many times you take all the juice out of it and how many times you put all the juice back into it. So you can see there's a real difference there across the chemistries. And lastly, cost. All right, my last little column at the bottom here, LCOE means levelized cost of energy. I'm kind of cheating because this is really more like a life cycle cost. Over time, the flooded lead acids are more expensive because you're going to replace them many times over the 2 to 5 to 10 years you're going to get out of your lithium ion batteries. And really the lithium ion batteries are warranted to 10 years now. So you might get 15 to 20 years out of them. Now, again, that's life cycle costs. So you're paying up front a lot more for the lithium ion, but over the life cycle of the battery, you're going to end up paying less, assuming you get everything you're thinking you're going to get. All right, so let's look at a couple systems here. This is a really small system. You're just going to power a couple little loads, your cell phone, charger, power radio, maybe your, a cordless phone if your phone is still available. There's a lot of these items now. I think of them as all-in-one power stations. They've got the inverter and the lithium rechargeable battery all housed in one package. And you can add solar to them, but you don't have to. They just plug into your regular household outlet. And like I said in slide number 1, when the grid's up, charges your battery. When the grid's down, you've got this device available to use. And they're very small, as you'll see. That's about 70 pounds. It's a couple feet long. Well, I can't remember the dimensions, but, and you just plug it into the house. So, the back picture there, you'd plug a cord in, plug it into your wall, and then the front, you could plug your loads in. And you could use this all the time. You don't just have to wait until the power is out. You could take it camping, you could take it to a job site, maybe run a radio, recharge your tools. Or you could just charge it up and leave it in the closet till the power goes out. All right, so again, this is small items, maybe a fridge, maybe, but not for very long. you know. And the prices for these guys, there are a few of these all-in-ones around. The Kilovault ResQ, that's the one I showed you a picture of because it's our product. I'm a little biased. But also look at the cycles on the batteries, 2,500 cycles versus the other guys, the Goal Zero and the EcoFlow. You've only got about 500 cycles or 800 cycles. So you're going to get a lot longer life out of this, out of the ResQ than you will out of the other two. Now, the other two have other cool features. They, you know, connect to the internet, and one of them comes on like a wheelie, some kind of a cart or something. So the other ones do have other features, but for pure power, you know, and as we talk about batteries in these next couple systems, you're going to see that cycle life come up more and more. I also threw out the bottom there are a couple, you know, economy power packs still available. If you've got something that is a non-important load, it'll run off a modified sine wave inverter. You can find little portable power packs that'll run, you know, AGM battery, not very expensive. Oh gosh. Okay, so this is the first battery backup system that I'm going to show you as an example. This is my house, Dave and my house. And we heat with wood. We have propane cooking and water heating. So we really have a pretty low electric load, especially if the power goes out, we wouldn't need much. The biggest thing here you'll see is the router, because I'm hoping that I'd be able to keep working through whatever this outage is. So at the bottom there, you can see I'm going for about 2,000 watts. And again, if you remember your worksheet from Russ's exercise, that's all the power I need if everything's on at once. And then over in the right-hand column there, I've got my watt hours, and I'm going for about 3,000 in this case. And so the system that I came up with here, it's a 2,200 watt inverter and my 3,000 watt hours of battery. And it's going to cost me about $2,500 if I use AGM batteries. Okay. And you can see that's going to run us for one day. So if the power's out for one day, that's what we got, 2,500 bucks. And one of the things I want to show you here is, I guess I didn't talk about this back at the battery characteristics where we talked about the differences between the two batteries. One of the things that lithium has over AGM is useful storage. Okay, so if you see on my sheet here, I said 2,200 watt pure sine wave inverter. It's going to be a 24 volt system, 4.2 kilowatt hours. And again, if you did your exercise, you know, the homework that Russ gave you there, you should have some, that should mean something to you. Like you should have a kilowatt hour number in your head about what you use. But AGM batteries, you can only use half of the available energy. So that's why I say it's really only 2.1 usable kilowatt hours. Okay. If you go down to the next line, it's the same inverter. It's still a 24 volt system. And I've got a little bit more lithium storage. I've got my 3.6 kilowatt hours, but because I can use almost 100% of lithium, we say 80%, but really you could do 100. That gets you down to about 2.9 kilowatt hours, and you're spending, you know, almost twice as much, not quite. Oh, that's a terrible picture. That's a picture of one of the AGM batteries. Sorry, that's so low res. And again, it's a lead acid battery, but AGM means absorbed glass mat. It's a sealed battery. It can't spill. You don't have to vent it. That also low res. The reason I'm showing this picture, this goes back to what Russ was talking about with transfer switches. The inverter that I was using for Dave and I does not have a transfer switch. So like Russ was talking about with those portable generators, if this was my backup system, I would have to get a cord, plug my fridge into the cord, or not my fridge because this is too small, my router, plug it into a cord, and then plug my cord into the plugs on this inverter. So there's no automatic, there's no nothing. You're just plugging things in. You can go up a step. This is an inverter from the same company, a little bit bigger. Actually, it might not be bigger. It might be still 2,200 watts, but it does have an automatic transfer switch. So this is something you could use in a vehicle. This is something you could use if you wanted a little bit more automation. We saw a lot of these for RVs. All right, I'm going on to system number 2, you guys. So this is a bigger system. This is our Dave's mother and aunt across the street from us, the Williams Fowler household. And you can see I cheated a little bit with them. they have some big loads. They've got an electric water heater. They've got a 240 volt water pump. They've got an electric stove. So, but what I do have with them, so the total wattage would be about 1,300 watts if they had every single thing in their house on at once. Or no, I guess that was the surge. Or no, I'm sorry. I know what I did here. So the first column, the 331 is if they had everything on in the whole house. And then that 7675 was if they just, the wattage for just their critical loads. And the reason I did it this way for these guys is I have their electric bill. And they have 2 meters. They have one for their everything else, and then they have one for their water heater. So, and I know what they want to back up. They want to back up the biggest loads in their house. So we're probably talking about a big system. You know, we're looking about 16 kilowatt hours per day for this system. We're assuming the power is out, so we're not going to totally run the whole thing. So for them, what I did was an 8,000 watt inverter, because remember I said they have about 7,700 watts of load if everything's on at once. And I'm going to shoot for about 10 kilowatt hours a day. Okay. And then again, I did the same math. I've got my same inverter. If they use AGM storage, it'll be about 12 grand. The same inverter with some lithium ion storage is about 15,000, 15.5. I feel like something's wrong there. That should be maybe a little bit different. And here's the equipment. So I showed you the small inverter that Dave and I would have used that has the plug-in. This is a big inverter. The top of this gray box is the inverter. The bottom is all the breakers and the transfer switches and everything like that. And you just literally plug that to your circuit breaker panel, your critical loads panel. And over there on the side there, I'm just identifying that it's out back and also reminding us that these are really sophisticated inverters. They can do a lot of programming. They can do load shaving. They can prioritize battery use so that you're never buying utility power. They have a lot of opportunities to, you know, to program them how you want. So I've been talking about lithium battery. I showed you that horrible picture of the AGM battery. Here's a slightly better picture of a lithium battery. This just looks like a 12 volt battery, right? And it is. It's 12 volt, 300 amp hour. You just hook up battery cables like it was any other car battery or deep cycle battery. But batteries are also getting a lot more sophisticated. Okay, so here's a system, that Solarc on the right, that's the inverter. Those 2 kilovolts on the left, those are batteries. And those are each 7.5 kilowatt hours. So that's a 15 kilowatt hour backup power system right there. And that's about a 12 kilowatt inverter. So you can see it doesn't take up a lot of room in your, garage. You're not talking about batteries, taking up a parking space. And these things are smart now. They communicate with each other. The inverter talks to the batteries. They can all talk to the internet. You've got apps to keep track of everything. And here's just another system. This Solarc is more of a hybrid system. Like this is a system you could use on grid or off grid. And this one is a little bit of a smaller, just a backup. This is probably, and you can see these guys even have a little generator. You can see the 4 green batteries. And then to the right of them, there's a black blob. These guys have a generator. So this is a customer of ours in Puerto Rico who, has a backup power system. And that's it, guys. Unless people have questions or we want to talk about solar a little bit.
Kim, before we hand things over to Heather, there were just a few questions that came in that I think we'll tackle now before switching. And the first one is, how long does a battery hold a full charge?
Well, that's an excellent question. I mean, it depends on the battery. So when we're looking at the lithium batteries, right, they'll hold it forever, 5% self-discharge. So you could really leave them just sitting for a long time. Lots of caveats, right? Like freezing temperatures can be a problem. You obviously don't want them out in the weather. But theoretically, they can just be sitting there for months and months and months and months, waiting to be used. But if you're talking about a lead acid battery, then no, not as much at all. But those are going to do 15% self-discharge, right? So with those, you would need to pay a little bit more attention to keeping them charged and watered, vented, warm, all that stuff. Oh yeah, I didn't see all those questions up there.
Okay, no, and those were just coming in. Okay, and then what is, and I assumedly this is going to vary and be system specific, but you know, as generically as possible, I guess, what is the smallest battery backup system that will allow a PV system to work in a power failure?
What is the smallest battery backup system that will allow, like an existing grid tie PV system? If that's what
obviously.
Yes.
Yes.
It depends on the inverter. If you see, this is where it gets into the weeds. So if you're going to try to do a battery backup system that's like AC coupled, Russ, then it will depend on the size of that battery based inverter. That might dictate your battery bank size more than your loads. So the smallest would be as small as your loads are, you know, as little as you want to run, pending, you know, how you hook things up. You know, if you have a grid tied solar system, you don't need to do a complicated AC coupled system, which is what, you know, Tesla, no offense to Tesla, and a lot of other people are doing, right? You're taking your grid tied system, you're adding a battery and a battery based inverter, you're sort of making a little microgrid. It can be complicated, but you could have just a backup power system in parallel that just senses when the grid goes down, powers your critical loads. And that would still require this second battery based inverter, but it could be small. It could be just to run, it could be 1,000 watt inverter or something with a couple, you know, 100 amp hours battery or something just to power your critical loads. So the minimum size is going to depend on how you wire it.
But will the PVs be working in conjunction with this?
Not if you did what I just said, no. But you could.
That defeats the purpose. I want the PVs just like here at Tin Mountain. We want their photovoltaic system to be able to produce power, particularly because they would have people here in the daytime when the sun is out. And
sure.
So it would make.
Right.
Then the question is how small a system can you get away with to make that work, or is that very much a site specific?
Yeah, so these are some of the weeds I was talking about. So the way the Tin Mountain system is structured with the string inverter, you could AC couple that system, which would mean adding batteries and a battery-based inverter. The size of that battery-based inverter would have to be big at 125% of the output of your grid tie inverter. Okay. So that's the minimum that inverter would have to be, because again, you're creating this situation where they're kind of feeding each other. Alternatively, you take a string of your panels and you take it out of your Sunny Boy inverter and you run it through a charge controller and then a battery bank and then a battery-based inverter. And that's called a DC coupled system. And then you can have the smallest system that you need to run your loads, because you're not, that AC coupling, sorry guys, that AC coupling is what drives that battery-based inverter getting so big. Let's talk about this after for people that are interested in it.
And say, I almost understand that.
I'll show you a diagram when we're done and you'll totally understand it.
Yeah. But we do have Sunny Boy inverters here, so that's a plus.
Exactly. Yeah. No, they're a great candidate for DC coupling, which will be a lot less expensive if we can figure out that sizing.
Now, I picked up on something that that you said, you showed that David's mother has a second meter for hot water. I got rid of my second meter for hot water years ago because I was paying $13 a month for that, or about $150 a year to have that meter, but there wasn't any cost saving anymore because I think that Eversource had done away with their quick recovery. If anybody else taking part in this knows that I'm wrong, there's no reason to have that second meter, and you're paying a meter charge every month for that.
Right. We looked at that, Russell. She's only paying $5 a month now.
Oh.
And you only pay the 8 cents a kilowatt hour for like delivered energy or whatever the term is. She doesn't pay any of those other, like whatever it's called, delivery, any of those other things. So we actually looked at the math. She is saving about $7 a month.
Okay.
Keeping the meter as it is. But yeah, that was my first thought too.
Yep.
I was like,
Do we have another presenter here tonight?
Yeah, we do. So I was gonna say, Kim, if you want to stop screen sharing, we are going to, so sort of what Kim alluded to, or, sort of some of those last battery banks that were looking much more sort of high tech and streamline in the wall, I think is what our next presenter is going to talk a little bit more about. We have Heather Tibbetts, who's the manager of rates and regulatory affairs with Liberty Utility, which is not a utility company that services the Mount Washington Valley, but they're over in more of the Upper Valley area. And she's going to talk about power walls, sort of these bigger systems, and also they have a very exciting pilot project that they are launching there, which we found out afterwards. It looks as though Eversource is doing a similar, or is a somewhat similar project as well. But I will hand things over to Heather.
Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. And then, oh boy, I have 3 screens. I don't even know which one I'm sharing.
Right now we can see, it says Liberty Utility, there's a red car.
Okay. So do you see like the actual PowerPoint,
I can see your pointer
we can
moving
see your
around.
side. Yeah, we can see your side slides as well.
Oh God.
If you go into slideshow, it'll probably work. Just hit from beginning up there on the left. Looked like it would work.
We lose her?
It's frozen.
Hot where I am.
No, the screen is frozen.
Oh, I get it. I get it. Arthur Vanes, I want you to send me an email so I get back in touch with you.
All right, Heather, are you still there? Oh no, if you are talking, we can't.
While we're trying to get her, Eversource does have a program where they will buy back power for you from your batteries package at times of peak demand, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, because there was talk about that, and then there was said no, they had stopped it. But
oh no, sorry. When I said I misspoke when I said that they had reached capacity. That was on a different program that they had reached capacity. I was just
okay, because that gentleman I spoke to today has not signed up for that yet. He's waiting to get some glitches out of his system, but that's on his radar. So.
Yes, and we were hoping to have, we're trying to get someone from Eversource to talk about that program, but that didn't, it never panned out. So Heather, I don't know, maybe if we stop sharing and start, try to start sharing again.
We need an 8th grader here.
I know, right? All right. Oh, here she's coming back in. So that's funny that.
Yeah.
All right. These are all the joys of our new online lives. But yes, hopefully it looks like maybe we've got her coming in maybe on an iPad or a different. Ooh, we have lots of Heathers coming in now.
Hey, sorry guys, I'm back.
Oh, no problem.
Oh my goodness. You'd think that like, I mean, I live in Nashville. We have good internet, but for some reason the internet on our street is horrible all the time. So I apologize for that. I'm going to try this again and try to share my screen. Let's see here. All right, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share the screen. Share. Okay, so I just see Nora. So Nora, you guys all see that, and now you see.
And now we see the red car.
Okay. I think I'm just gonna leave it like this for now to make it easy, so I don't mess anything up. Because whatever I hit before made a mess. So
that's fine.
As Nora said, my name is Heather Tebbets, and I'm the manager of rates and regulatory affairs for Liberty Utilities. We are a natural gas company and an electric company here in New Hampshire. So we serve for electricity, the Upper Valley, as she mentioned, Hanover, Lebanon area. We also serve the Salem and Pelham area and Walpole and Charlestown areas. For natural gas, it's not a natural gas piece, but just so that you guys have an idea, we serve the 93 corridor and Keene, essentially. So basically Tilton down to Nashua, over to not quite Salem, that's Unitil territory, and like I say, Keene. So what I want to talk to you guys about today really is what we're looking at as a utility for the future. We have some pretty aggressive goals as a company to become pretty reliant on natural resources, such as obviously sun and wind. We serve not just New Hampshire, we actually serve the area of Joplin, Missouri, which if anyone's familiar with Joplin, they had multiple F5 tornadoes that have completely decimated the city in the past maybe 10 years. And so we serve electricity over there and natural gas. We also serve the Lake Tahoe area on the California side. So North Tahoe all the way down to South Tahoe around the lake, which if anyone's been out there, they may know that it's extremely strict on fossil fuels, and California in general is, but the Tahoe Basin is extremely strict on everything, certainly because they want to keep the natural preserve of everything that's out there. So with that, our company, as I mentioned, we're pretty much on the path to what we're calling like utility 2.0. And what does that mean? That really just means that looking at non-wires alternatives, which storage and solar would be that. Also looking at smart grid. A smart grid doesn't mean it's fancy. I will just tell you up front. People like to think smart grid technology has to be batteries and solar and microgrids. Smart grids could simply even be just the fact that we put a recloser on that, rather than us, when the recloser trips from a fault, maybe it's an animal, even just a tree branch, we don't have to send a crew out there. It automatically will heal, and it will try to heal a few times. And by doing that we consider that smart grid technology, because it, instead of a customer waiting for us to drive a truck out there to go literally pop it in with a stick, it heals itself. And those kinds of things are not fancy. Well, I will say they're not sexy, right? Like everyone wants sexy when it comes to electricity and smart grid. Sometimes some things that are simple are actually extremely valuable because those, again, save time and also saves the customer time. But one of the things we are looking at is storage. And the reason we're looking at storage is because solar is so important to our grid, but it's not dispatchable, right? So you can't tell the sun to shine when it doesn't want to shine. So the only way to be able to help with that issue is to pair it with solar, pair solar with storage. So one of the things that we looked at was trying to figure out really how do we pair all of this? How do we pair all of this? How do we take this idea of storage and really try to utilize it with our customers? There are utilities out there, and we're one of them that has looked at in front of the meter storage. That means that the storage is actually on the grid and not in a customer's home or a business. If you were to do that, you're looking at larger systems, 500 kW to 1,000 kW. That's really what you would want to do, a whole megawatt, or even larger. We looked at in California at 8 megawatts of power because one of the areas that we serve, a ski area in Lake Tahoe, has low reliability, and simply because they get a lot of snow, and it's difficult to build a line up the mountain when it's 8,000 feet above sea level. So, but as I mentioned, one of the things we looked at in New Hampshire was storage behind the meter. And the reason for that really was customer engagement. So I deal with the Public Utilities Commission and a lot of parties like a Conservation Law Foundation, Clean Energy New Hampshire, Acadia Center, and they're really looking to parties, could be utility, maybe not, to really focus on what does the customer want, what are the customer needs. And our customers are pretty intellectual when it comes to their energy usage, I will say. They're very much engaged at the Public Utilities Commission as customers, and not necessarily as a party like a Conservation Law Foundation. And because of that, we feel, the obligation, and also it's the right thing to do to listen to our customers and say, what do you guys want? So we heard a little bit from customers that, behind the meter storage might be interesting. So we came up with a program that basically provides behind the meter storage to customers in New Hampshire, our customers. The idea behind the pilot, and it's a pilot, is that we're looking to reduce peak demand, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and also battery backup for power outages. So ISO New England is our retail regional transmission operator. And so as a utility, we pay to them transmission charges every single month. Those charges are based on our coincident peak. So the coincident peak is essentially the highest peak load in 1 month for the whole of New England. And so whatever hour that peak happens, let's say today at 6 o'clock, hour ending 6 o'clock, it was the peak for the month. Well, what is Liberty's load at that hour ending? We'll say it's 200 megawatts. Well, that means that we have to pay a fee for the 200 megawatts. And the idea behind this program is, one of the things is to reduce that 200 megawatts. So if we put 2.5 megawatts of storage on the system, and we dispatch that 2.5 megawatts at that peak hour I just mentioned, then we're actually only going to get billed for 197.5 megawatts. What does that mean for customers? Well, the benefit to customers is we charge them, it's a complete pass-through. We do not make money, it's no profit on this. If we're only if we're expecting to just pay 200 megawatts and we only get charged for 197, then that 3 megawatts of value will actually reduce customers' bills. So when we go in for reconciliation in the following year, we will look to say, all right, actually we only spent X amount of dollars. We are going to refund you this other 3 megawatts in this example, which doesn't sound like a lot of money, but this is a pilot, and the idea is to learn about can we reduce the load with using behind the meter storage, and also customer behavior. So one of the other pieces of this is time of use rates, and you can see that there's been some news out there about the time of use rates, and the reason for that is they're the most innovative of any utility in the country, and that was purposeful because what we want to try to learn about is customer behavior. So for example, if you know that at 5 o'clock, you're going to run your dishwasher and you're going to do a load of laundry and run the dryer, and they're both electric, but you're paying 34 cents a kilowatt hour, you're probably not going to do that, because on a fixed rate, you're paying 16 cents a kilowatt hour, or at least for us, it's like 14 cents a kilowatt hour. I'm not sure what Eversource or the co-op have. So then if you were to say, okay, I'm going to do it after 8 o'clock, that's when our off-peak period starts, and you're only paying 7 cents a kilowatt hour, you're going to do it for 7 cents a kilowatt hour. So that's a customer behavior that we want to also learn about, and our customers are willing to do that. So basically the idea here is that we are owning 500 Tesla batteries, which I'll talk about in a minute, that are going to go behind the meter in customer homes. We have phase 1, which is 100 customers. They each get 2 batteries. And they will take time of use rates, and those time of use rates have 5 periods. Monday through Friday, they are critical peak, mid peak, and off peak. So to give you an idea, the critical peak hours are between 3 p.m. and 8 p.m. And the critical peak hours are really the highest cost periods for the utilities. And that's because that's when ISO New England hits its peak just about every month and every year. Then we're going to have a phase 2, which will have another 150 customers in about 2 years who can also sign up and get 2 power walls and participate in the program. One of the things I will mention is that we will own these batteries. The utility owns them, but the customer is paying a contribution. So a customer has the option to pay $50 a month for 10 years or about $4,900 upfront and no monthly payment. And the reason behind that is a couple of things. One, when we work through this program, we want customers to have skin in the game. We want them to we want to learn about them having behavior changes, but also them understanding that there is a cost to the program. The batteries aren't free, and in fact, they're quite expensive, and I can talk about that in a minute as well. And so that was important to us, that customer was paying something. Now, we'll tell you, as part of the program, customers actually see a benefit because those batteries dispatch every Monday through Friday between that critical peak hours I told you, 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. So essentially, if you're using less power than what the batteries can provide you, then you will not import any power from the grid during those critical peak hours, which means you are completely avoiding that 36-cent charge during those hours. So you should see a benefit on your bill because you're not, for 20 days a month, you're not importing power. And again, that it's an offset because you're going to pay for the battery, but the batteries are installed about $17,000. You get 2 batteries. The batteries are 5 kW each, so you have 10 kilowatts, which is actually a decent amount of power for your home. Each battery has 13.5 kilowatt hours. And so you have 27 kilowatt hours every day. That's a lot of power for your home. Although if you have well pumps and things like that, maybe, you're at that cusp of potentially draining your battery completely, but that's okay. The other side of it is the batteries will automatically, if you don't have solar, the batteries will automatically charge up every single night in off peak. So while you are paying the off peak rate to charge it, it's an off peak rate. And in the winter time, it's about 14 cents a kilowatt hour. In the summertime, it's about 6 cents a kilowatt hour. And that's all in, based on the way that we've designed our rates. And the rates are based on cost. So they're actually based on what costs we incur as a utility from ISO New England, rather than it's just our costs incurred from our business. As noted here, our first deployment started this year. We went to the Public Utilities Commission back in late 2017 to get approval for the program, and it took quite a while. It's a new program, as I mentioned. No one else in the country is doing anything like this. Green Mountain Power does have a program similar. They don't have time of use rates with it. So because we paired it with time of use rates, it is a complicated program. But we did start deployments this summer, and we do have customers with solar who are also taking it. And everyone's pretty excited about the program. We also have customers who, as I mentioned, do not have solar, and they're on the program. So, I think the takeaway really from our program is that a few things. One, the customer has battery backup, which we already talked about here, how important battery backup is. Another thing that is really important to us is that the company can, I think I forgot to mention this, the company will dispatch those batteries when we believe there's a peak event happening. So for example, yesterday and today may have been peak for the month, and that's primarily because it was kind of nice out. So we're working with Tesla, and I'll talk about that in a minute as well, but we're working with Tesla to dispatch those batteries. So what's interesting about that really is we'll take control. We'll tell the batteries to dispatch at those hours and then hit that peak. If your battery not only offsets your home load, it actually exports power to the grid. Your meter will spin backwards, so you get the net metering credit as well. So again, as I mentioned, you're going to get battery backup. You're going to get the batteries to offset your home load 5 days a week, all month, and then you're also going to get an opportunity for your meter to spin backwards and get net metering credit, even if you're not a solar customer, because we are telling the batteries to do that. So we paired with Tesla to do this. And the reason primarily for that was the capacity and energy in their batteries. We did an RFI before we presented this to the commission to find out more information about other people's batteries. And there were some pretty good battery makers out there. LG Chem is one, Sonnen is one. Unfortunately, they didn't have the usable capacity that we were looking for. What we wanted to be able to do is have 2 hours of dispatch and then still something left in the battery. So because Tesla's batteries are 5 kW a piece, pair them together, we could dispatch 10 kW in 1 hour, or kind of split that over, you know, the 2 hour period, because we say that we hit the peak in that hour, but when did we hit the peak? We have to be able to dispatch those batteries over a 2 hour period. Now, if we dispatch those batteries over a 2 hour period and we have less than 10 kilowatt hours per battery, well, I'm not going to be able to push out 5 kW, now am I? So because Tesla has 13.5 kilowatt hours, we actually have the opportunity to leave about 20% in the battery for the customers after we've pushed out that 5 kW each battery. So, as I mentioned, now the customer not only has the opportunity to have their meter spin backwards, but if for some reason there was a power outage, call it a hot day, and it's a peak day, and you know, on our western side of the state, sometimes thunderstorms will roll through. And although the peak hour may still happen, we'll call it at 6 p.m. that day, there is still a chance that the thunderstorm rolls through and the customer lost power because, you know, we had some high winds or something, and now they have no battery backup. Like, that's not what we wanted for our customer. We want this to be a good customer experience. So we picked a battery that can do that. Granted, they're not giving much power, but at least it's enough power for us to get a crew out there and do what we need to do, either at the substation or pull the tree, you know, pull some more wire, whatever that needs to be. So that's what we pair with Tesla. We also pair with Tesla because they have an algorithm that allows for dispatching and aggregation. So they've been working with us to really actually just dispatch those batteries when needed, and it's an automatic command. The other thing is also predicting that peak. That's very difficult, and we looked at a lot of companies to try to help us do that. And really, Tesla was the only one who had an algorithm that feeds in the ISO New England data every day to determine, is today a peak, based it on all kinds of other data. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. What should the batteries do? So to give you an idea too, I have this little video here of, you know, what happens with the batteries and how do they power your house. So let's see here. So you can see, you know, if you have solar panels on your home, you can see in the green, it's powering the batteries. At night, you bring your car home. That happens to be a Tesla, obviously. And the batteries are now powering your home. And that's essentially what we're doing. Although if you don't have solar, obviously that is being done from the grid at night instead. And that's simply because of the very cheap time of use rates. So it's a great program for our customers. Our customers are pretty happy with it. We're excited to be able to present something like this to our customers, and also just try to move the utilities in New Hampshire into this realm of, you know, what I call the 2.0. You know, I'll be honest, my father worked for Eversource. I worked for Eversource too for a long time. And, you know, they would say, oh, your father's utility, right? Because back in the 70s and 80s, you know, we looked at nuclear power and we know how all that went. And not much innovation has happened since then, until really the late, you know, 2000s, early, you know, 2000 teens. So again, we're looking to kind of move that paradigm, trying to learn more about our customers, learn more about their behavior. And customers are really savvy about their usage. They believe in climate change. They want to reduce their usage. They want to reduce their bills, but they also want to leave, like, you know, reduce their carbon footprint. These are all ways to get us there. There's no one answer. So to give you guys an idea of a home installation, if you had the Teslas, the Powerwalls, they would go in your house and probably in your garage, or they would really just go wherever your panel is. The idea is that you have the batteries here connected to your utility meter, which is usually outside. And then you have your main panel, and your gateway. So the batteries will be connected to your main panel, and then the gateway is really the brains of everything. It's where the internet is connected to. It's where you have all of the metering and everything for the batteries. What is it doing at that time? What's it doing in the house? The gateway also knows what's going on in the panel. It is a smart device. So for those of you who are savvy about the smart device statute here in New Hampshire, it is a smart device. It can monitor what's going on in your home, your appliances, and that's simply because it's connected to your main panel, unlike your utility meter, which can't do that. So we do have customers who have to sign a contract because it is, again, a statute in New Hampshire that allows customers to say, hey, we don't want any of this, although all of these customers opted into this program. The next thing I'll talk about is like longevity and considerations, right? So when you're talking about battery storage, I think some of you had touched upon this. Batteries degrade. I mean, if you have a cell phone, your battery degrades. How long can you keep your battery charged at that 100%? Well, over time, it's less and less time, right? You're saying, oh, I've only had my phone in my pocket for 6 hours and it's only down to 40%. I haven't really used it that much. But in the beginning, I could do it for 12 hours. Those are lithium ion batteries in your phone, same thing here. So we have to provide a design that you think will work for the application. So in this application, the batteries will be good up to 70% for 10 years. So for us in this project, we thought that was fantastic. There are options for battery sizing, depending on what you're doing with it. If you are a residential customer, you may want to oversize your batteries. So for example, if you have well pumps and an electric car and you don't have solar, so you have well pumps, electric cars, maybe you have many children in the home who all use electronic devices at the same time as well. Maybe you would want 3 of these for a 15 kW system, really. And again, that helps with the degradation later on. I don't know if you want to spend the money up front for that, but there are people out there who do need sizing that is much greater than what our program is providing to customers. The other thing too on sizing is commercial. When are you going to be utilizing those batteries? If you're going to use them for backup power, are you using them to peak shave for you? Because if you're a commercial customer, you're incurring a lot of energy costs for demand charges. And you could actually dispatch those batteries during your highest demand hours each day and reduce your demand on the grid and also reduce your electric bill. Then you look at it for grid backup, which is where I mentioned earlier, the in front of the meter or on the grid backup. And it's very expensive right now to utilize these batteries just for backup. So if you were to look at installing batteries for grid purposes, you would want it for more than that. You'd want it for resiliency and reliability and not just power outages. Batteries can help with voltage issues and things like that. So those are things that we as a company are looking at here in New Hampshire and in our other territories as well. Some considerations: how often will they be dispatched? Kim, I think you talked about that a little bit. It does affect the lifespan of the batteries, although the lithium ion batteries will last, 15 years is what we're told. So and that's not at 100% charge, but they'll last 15 years. So again, what are you going to be doing with that? I think Kim even talked about, climate location a little bit, and that, these batteries need to stay at a certain temperature. If anyone has an electric car and a pure electric car, not a hybrid, you probably notice that if you keep it outside in the cold, it takes a really long time for it to actually even warm up because the batteries need to stay at a certain temperature. And I don't know exactly what that is. It's like 35 degrees or something like that. But nonetheless, it has to stay at a certain temperature. So the car will always have that, whatever liquid inside moving around in the batteries. The Tesla Powerwalls work exactly the same way. And so another reason why they go in the house is it's a better location. Also, you don't have to worry about the elements at all. The last thing to think about too with considerations is storage and solar. So, to have unlimited power, backup power for your long duration outages is really, really important. And I think, more so probably for maybe you guys up there. I live in Nashua, but I know in our Upper Valley, some of our power outages are days, and it's simply because we have so many trees, and it's difficult to dig new poles, rip out those trees that have now taken everything down. Getting vehicles there, especially in the wintertime, can be very treacherous. And so it just takes us that much longer to restore power. In the urban areas, maybe it's not so bad, but in the urban areas, we just end up with more customers out. And that's also where our substations tend to be. So we also end up sometimes having issues at the substation, which is even longer repair to get power back on. The other thing is they're fully automated. One of the things I think someone did mention is, you don't have to wheel out your generator outside. You also don't have to carbon monoxide because they're powered with electricity. They're not a generator. They store power. You don't have to worry about them in carbon monoxide. And, some of the other things I'll just quickly mention is, like I said, about the customer value stack, the backup power. If you have rooftop solar, that's self-consumption. You can charge it with your rooftop solar. If if you're able to utilize your batteries with solar, you could reduce your bill. And then if you have the opportunity to get into a time of use program, that's just bill management and allowing you to make decisions as the customer as to what the most important time of day you're willing to pay for things. People like to pay for convenience. We know that with, Uber and Lyft and other programs like that, they'll pay for convenience. And so maybe today you absolutely have to do that load of laundry because your kids need their soccer clothes by 6 o'clock tonight. So you're willing to pay for that convenience today, but maybe tomorrow and the rest of the week, you don't have to. So I think it's really important, as I mentioned, that our customers, and although you're not our customer, I still, think it's great that you guys are looking at these things. I think it's important. I think as a company, we think it's very important that customers look at their energy usage, understand their energy usage, understand the kinds of appliances they're using and what those appliances do to their bill, and also the time that they're using them, what it does to the grid, because the more load we have during those high peak hours, the more costly it is. And so you don't necessarily always peak shave. You may even shift the peak, and we don't want that either. We don't want to shift peak. We want customers to just use less. So I hope, I guess I can see if we have any questions since I can't see. I guess if I stop sharing, I can see. Oh, there we go. I don't know if there are questions, there are comments. I'm happy to answer.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Heather. I think there was one clarifying question. You were saying those batteries are 5 kilowatts, correct? Each?
Yes, they're 5 kilowatts. So 5,000 each one.
Yeah.
5
okay.
kilowatts.
That's what I thought. I don't know if anyone else has any questions specific for, for Heather. You can type it in now, or, or unmute yourself and ask it directly. Otherwise,
I have a question.
Yeah.
Heather, I love what you said at the end there about just like whatever tools we can use to make people more aware of what appliances they're using and when they're using them, and the fact that there is a real cost to the utility grid when people use them at those peak hours. And I mean, it's so yeah, to me, that's like the key thing about solar and any of this stuff is I love the side note can be that people learn about their energy consumption, right? Which is important. But I have a question. This is kind of a geeky question, but so in the Powerwall, there's an inverter and batteries, right? Like the Powerwall is basically an AC coupled solution, right? If people already have a grid tie system with a grid tie inverter.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. And we do have customers who actually got them that didn't get them with their solar. Like they already had solar. And so Tesla's able to connect them so that they're still utilizing it like that.
Right. So, but I guess my question is, and this is kind of like what Russ and I were talking about in the middle there, is that my understanding with AC coupling is that you have to size the inverter, in this case, the inverter that's in the Powerwall. There's a relationship there between that grid tied inverter and the inverter that's in the Powerwall, and you can't, and I don't see that when you guys, when the Powerwall sizes stuff, they never talk about that. And so is that all happening in the brains of that interface? Is it like doing load managing? Do you understand what I'm asking? If you go back to the slide, the home installation.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I don't know. I would have to assume it is, because we have some customers who have some decent size solar systems that got the batteries, and they're only 10 kW total. And so they must have, I have to assume it's doing it in the brain somewhere, because I don't know how else that would have worked if that's not the case.
Well, and I think my other question is, like, I noticed on the spec sheet, it says the batteries are actually rated at 13.5 kilowatt hours. So when you talk about that 5 kilowatts, that's really the inverter size, not the battery size, correct?
Yeah, it's the capacity of power that we
AC output.
Yeah,
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah,
All
exactly. It's the capacity. It's that 1 hour capacity. So essentially for everyone else, like 1 kilowatt for 1 hour is 1 kilowatt hour. So 5 kilowatts for 1 hour is 5 kilowatt hours. We looked at for 2 hours. We need 10 kilowatt hours. This provides us 13.5 kilowatt hours.
Got it. All right. That's great. Okay, thank you.
So this one I have on here for Eversource, I think that is in Massachusetts, by the way.
Demand response.
For home battery storage. I think that's Massachusetts. Not that it matters. I'm just mentioning it.
Yeah, no, that's it's Russ, did we ever connect with one of the, I guess the woman we were talking to was Massachusetts based.
Yes, she was. But the gentleman that Conway is looking at doing this.
Your audio is all spotty right now.
Oh, okay. My headset.
Oh, now it's better.
Oh, okay. The gentleman I spoke with in Seneca Conway, who has a Powerwall, sounds like he's planning on doing this. So I'm assuming it's available locally, but we'll have to find that. I guess the point is, it's what's coming. It's definitely what's going to be coming. As Heather pointed that out, this is where it's all going, so that we all become part of the solution.
Well, and it could also be that people are, people can buy and use Powerwalls without doing them through this utility program. So it could be that he's just installing it separately, right, Russ?
No, he's waiting to get some glitches worked out of his system before he signs up for the demand response program. So we can find.
Oh, I see. Okay.
We can find out a little more about that, and maybe send that out afterwards to let people know if and when it's coming, if it's here, whatever.
Quickly go. So I'm going to let you finish, because I know that I'm going to let you, scroll through. But in quickly going to the Eversource, I'm looking at the link at the top. It says Eversource content / New Hampshire residential. So I think that that it is, but just being sensitive to time and other things going on this evening, we'll finish up what we have.
Do you have this slide up now, Nora?
If you need choosing the battery, yes, it is on our website, in that link that I put at the very beginning. I'll drop it back into the chat in case anyone missed it, but there, yes, you can download this from the link that I just put into the chat feature.
Yep, along with the
Yes.
the worksheet from last week, which would give people a bit of an idea where to go. At least maybe equip them with the questions they need to ask a supplier before they take out their checkbook.
All right, so
that's all I've got.
all right. Wonderful. So I feel like we have just thrown lots and lots of information at everyone. And I know that, you know, that it's getting later in the evening. This program will be put up on Tin Mountain's YouTube channel in the next few days, along with the first, turn myself back on here, along with the first program, which is already up, and those links, get your can of beans still good.
Yeah, don't forget the manual can opener, because you know, as a last resort, you know, a can of Sterno and the manual can opener and a can of beans, it maybe get you through a day or two.
But yeah, so we have all that'll be on the website. If anyone wants to get in touch with anyone that they talked to, I mean, that if anyone wants to get in touch with anyone who was on the program this evening, you can reach out directly to me. I'm happy to patch you in to the right individuals. I haven't seen any questions come in, but if anyone does have any final questions for Russ or Kim or Heather, or you know, or just in general, you know, certainly type them in now, or go ahead and unmute yourself. Otherwise,
Whoever holds your peace.